Hello, I'm David Hughes, and this is the Esoteric Teaching Introductory Seminar, continued. In our last video, we talked about the Vedas as the context of the esoteric teaching and of yoga, meditation, tantra, and other spiritual practices. Now in this session, I'd like to enlarge on that point and give a little bit more detail about how the teachings fit together. As I said before, the esoteric teaching and the Vedic literature are content and context. You cannot separate one from the other. The esoteric teaching is coming down through the chain of enlightened masters, master teachers, from one generation to the next. It's a living teaching, it's a mystery, and a mystery school forms around each master teacher in turn. So this is the living transmission of the esoteric teaching. At the same time, we have the literary transmission of the esoteric teaching through the Vedic literatures. One cannot exist without the other. The literary teaching will be misunderstood unless there is a living master teacher to exemplify it and to pass on the state of consciousness given by the esoteric teaching in person. At the same time, the lineage of the esoteric teaching could not exist without the context of the Vedic literature to give it background and also to safeguard it from alterations. So, just as trying to study yoga and tantra outside of the context of the esoteric teaching is sure to lead to false results, similarly, any attempt to study the esoteric teaching outside of the context of the Vedic literatures is going to lead to total confusion. Now, obviously, we cannot reconstruct the Vedic civilization as it was 5,000 years ago when the Vedic literatures were put to paper. But we can understand their intent and purpose, and with the help of the contemporary self-realized master teacher, we can adjust the teachings to the time and circumstance in order to get the same result. The master teacher knows the result and personifies that result. Therefore, we can be sure to get the original result by following the instructions of the master teacher in the context of the Vedic literatures of the esoteric teaching. Unfortunately, so far in the West, only a handful of teachers have given the original, complete esoteric teaching of yoga and tantra. Most have given only disconnected fragments and not made any reference to the original literatures, so we have no way of verifying the fidelity of their teaching. Any spiritual teaching is simply a means to an end. Just like an automobile or an airplane is a means to transport your body from one place to another. Similarly, yoga and tantra are a means of changing our consciousness from conditioned material consciousness to blissful, free, unconditional spiritual consciousness. So the idea of using yoga simply for physical conditioning is very limiting. It's ignorant, really. It ignores the true potential of yoga, which is to mitigate all material sufferings. Similarly, the idea of tantra being just about sex is completely misleading. The sexual teachings of tantra are only a very small part of the entire canon of the tantras, and they are part of the tantras that is very, very difficult to practice properly in today's atmosphere. So anyone who tries to practice the tantras has to be familiar with the complete tantric literature, and they have to also be aware of the threefold division of the Vedas into goodness, passion, and ignorance that we discussed before. And they need to put the emphasis on the parts of the Vedic literature that teach goodness rather than passion or ignorance. Then they'll start to get some really good results. So why is there so much confusion in the West about the Vedic teachings and the esoteric teachings and their meaning? Because any time you take something out of its context, you change the meaning. Actually, you lose the meaning completely. So by taking yoga and tantra out of the Vedic literature and out of the Vedic culture, we have transformed them from very powerful vehicles of self-realization to disempowered, disconnected, misunderstood teachings that can only end in futility and failure. Remember, the esoteric teaching in particular, and the Vedic literatures in general, are not a sectarian, religious, or spiritual path. They are universal, and they are eternal. They were written down 5,000 years ago, but that's only because in Kali Yuga, people can't remember things properly, and so the original teaching would have been lost. Even so, because people don't follow the original teachings of the Vedanta, the original writings of the Vedas, and the actual meaning of the esoteric teachings, all the spiritual technologies imported from India have been more or less destroyed in the West. The real method of handing down Vedic knowledge from one generation to the next is through the disciplic succession of self-realized master teachers. In the Vedas, this is called parampara. Parampara means disciplic succession. In other words, the original teaching was given by Krishna, and it was written down by Vyasadeva in the 4 Vedas and other Vedic literatures. These literatures and their practices were passed down in 4 lineages, and these 4 lineages still continue to the present day. However, 3 of them are inaccessible to Westerners and the rest of the world and are only available in India. So, the one bona fide disciplic succession that remains available to the entire world is the esoteric teaching. And this is the only vehicle that has all of the original complete instructions on yoga, tantra, meditation, and spiritual life. The teaching has to be handed down from a living teacher to a disciple, who then practices it and becomes enlightened. Then, the real meaning of the teaching is displayed in the life and character of the disciple. That disciple goes on to become a teacher or even a master teacher, and in that way the teaching is propagated. The original source literatures have to be translated into contemporary language so that anyone who reads them can understand. And it was only recently, within the past 25 years, that the original scriptures of the esoteric teaching have become available in the English language. So, we can understand from this that any literature on yoga, tantra, meditation, and so forth that was distributed in the West before these translations became available is more or less bogus. By bogus, I mean inaccurate, biased, misleading, and incomplete. The specific quality of the esoteric teachings is that when a qualified master teacher is speaking them and a qualified student is hearing them, they become sweeter and sweeter and more relishable. And you can hear them over and over and over again and never grow tired of them. In fact, repeated hearings only deepen one's realization and bliss. So we can understand that the actual esoteric teaching is a transcendental experience of association between a master teacher and a disciple. This is the eternal drama of the teaching. This is the eternal drama of enlightenment and liberation from material existence. And it is still going on today, as it shall go on forever. If we accept the esoteric teaching as it is, without our own misguided deletion, addition, or misinterpretation, Then we shall get not only material benefits such as peace and prosperity, we shall also get the highest spiritual benefits such as compassion, love, insight, illumination,